number 71, magical thinking.
Magical thinking, number 71. Also, the sin of presumption, expect a miracle. An ancient but diluted fallacy of logos, arguing that when it comes to crunch time, provided one has enough faith, prays hard enough, says the right words, does the right rituals, names it and claims it, or claims the promise, God will always suspend the laws of the universe and work a miracle at the request of or for the benefit of the true believer. In practice, this nihilist fallacy denies the existence of a rational or predictable universe and thus the possibility of any valid argument from logic. See also positive thinking, the appeal to heaven, and the Jobs comforter fallacy. Mm-mm-mm. Man, this one definitely got me a lot in the beginning of my business, for sure, because I was so damn desperate for things to work and that they needed to work. And I genuinely thought that at one point I was like, if I pray enough or if I am faithful enough, then the laws of physics will be broken for me to be able to make it through because that's the point. And I remember there were multiple times where um, that was just proven wrong. And I was like, oh, well, that didn't work. So, I remember hoping that though. I remember hoping that that would happen because in various situations I was in such what felt like such desperate situations or such desperate times. Um, it was like in my mind, because of the level of education that I had and what I was holding it as variables that were available to me consciously at the time, I believed the only way out of the situation would have been a quote unquote miracle or would have been a magical moment. I even remember saying to someone at one point that the only way I'm getting out of this is a miracle. Um, was something I used to say to myself early on in my career when I didn't know what I didn't know and was just doing my best to get by. So that's what comes up for me was like the first year to year and a half of being in business. That's what comes up for me in that one.
Nice. When you were reading this, I was like, I've never done this. I was definitely struggling trying to relate anything to this one. But now that I've thought on it, um, I will say what does work. That we know that works. When you there's no woo in this. If you tell yourself that you're going to achieve the thing, whatever that may be, um, you and a lot of things that you want to achieve do regard interacting with other humans. There is a level of confidence that comes across when you are more convicted that you're going to do something. Um, and so simply by giving yourself positive words of affirmation that you are so confident that you're going to do something, um, it gets people to buy into that. And things definitely work more in your favor rather than not thinking this way. This is not magical thinking. Like this is you can rely on this. Um, I remember, and this is we've shit on Vector a lot in our conversations here, but here I'm gonna say some good shit. Um, this is definitely what one of the biggest things that I learned to be successful while working at Vector was having a positive uh, mindset of whatever I'm doing, and even framing things using words uh, in the positive way to get things done. Meaning, um, for example, I would run into people that would say that weren't doing well, that said, I just don't want to be a failure. I just don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. And the subconscious, your subconscious, when it hears the I fear failing, I fear failing, all these things, um, you're focusing on what you don't want instead of the thing that you do want, and your subconscious can't really tell the difference between don't fail versus just failing, and so it just thinks about failing, and it's
Yep.
preparing yourself for what are you going to do if you fail, rather than saying I want to be successful. I plan to be successful. I'm going to be successful. Here's how I'm going to be successful. Um, just that simple switch will tell your subconscious what to do, and it prepares you um, for the interactions in life that you need to be successful, rather than preparing for a potential failure. And doing that um, is a positive thing that will help you. So I want to make that clear before I start to dismantle this when it comes to like magical thinking, because uh, magical thinking, um, I remember talking to my mom regarding prayer. Um, there's not a lot of things in religion that are falsifiable. But she did mention something that I'm like, I can actually do a scientific experiment on that. And that was regarding prayer. Um, she claimed if you pray for something, it is simply more likely to happen than to not happen. Case closed. And I'm like, really? So like you think that praying makes things happen? And she's like, not always, but more often than not, yes. I'm like, okay, interesting. You could test that. You could have people's goals, and instead of having them do the positive conviction thing, you swap it out for prayer and see what happens. What are the different results? And to nobody's surprise, these scientific experiments have already been done a long time ago, and they are still. You can still find some that are happening relatively recently, but conclusively, they're pretty much all the same results. So what I've seen is when it comes to prayer, at best, it's no different than saying positive conviction things for yourself to think more positively that will help your subconscious to do the right things you need to do.
Yeah.
At best, it's that. But at worst, we've actually seen that prayer has a slight decrease in you achieving the things you actually want to get in life, because it satisfies part of your brain that decides that it needs to take action in doing the things that you need to do, because you think your subconscious thinks that there's some other agent that's going to do part of it for you, so you don't actually have to try as hard when you pray. So um, yeah, we've actually seen, and this also includes um, play praying for family members who are sick to get better. If the person that is unwell knows that you are praying for them, there is a desire in them that they want to try to get better. And when they believe that they're not getting better fast enough, they believe that they are failing the people that are praying for them. And then that negatively affects their subconscious in the healing process. And this is part of placebo. Um, they now feel like they're even more sick than they should have been. And they actually do worse um, than for people that are simply there in an empathetic states, rather than wishing on a god to make them feel better. We've seen evidence that if you pray for somebody to get better, they actually get slightly worse. Um,
Mm.
so that is important, because that is actually a life or death situation. So um,
Mm.
yeah, and that is fascinating. And just to cover why people think prayer works, because again, at best, it's indistinguishable from simply having positive conviction in accomplishing your goals. That's a best case scenario, and that still has a positive effect. And so when you see those positive effects happen, um, people are very susceptible to confirmation bias in those mindsets, and they will point out all the times that it worked out for them, but they will regularly disregard the times that it did not work out for them. And typically, with at least in the Christian religion, with saying something like, "Oh, God has a bigger plan, and that needed to fail in order for something else good to happen," something like that, which now renders the whole premise unfalsifiable because either good things happen or when they don't go good, it's still a good thing. So now there's no way to test whether it's positive or not if you just tell yourself, "Oh, well, it is positive. I just don't know how the unintended consequence is going to make that thing positive," which was the blast fallacy for that one. But anyways, yeah. So that's a big one. It definitely combines a lot of different fallacies and irrational ways of thinking. Um, yeah, this is effectively the prayer fallacy, which yeah, I find very fascinating. All the things that go into convincing people that prayer works, um, when at best it does nothing, and unfortunately at worst, uh, it makes things worse. So um, pray for the opposite of what you want to happen, and then that there might be a slight chance of the opposite thing happening. But I would say the positive conviction thing, um, definitely do that. That is definitely helpful, for sure. So, anyways, I'm curious what Alan's thoughts are in my whole monologue about that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Um, I think ultimately when we visualize and so the perspective I come from is an emotional fitness perspective. And what that, to me, what that means is cultivating the ability to utilize emotions and emotional states to maximize the acquisition of our desired outcomes. And so, one such emotional state is one of belief. And I believe that if one can visualize the outcomes that they wish to achieve, but not just visualize them, but to believe in them, to corral the emotion, the feeling, the experience of belief. This will occur. This will occur. I'm excited as though it will occur. There are studies that even show that when we operate in peak emotional states, it increases the speed of neural pathway development. And this can go in both directions, peak positive, but also peak negative. It's how we experience traumatic experiences if we go through something extraordinarily painful or scary or difficult. And there's an acute experience of emotional pain, physical pain. The acute intensity of that pain can lead to a neural pathway being developed that leads us to then have us revisit that over and over again, which is PTSD. But the same thing applies to acutely powerful positive emotions and experience. That if we allow ourselves to employ certain emotions like belief, celebration, joy, excitement around a particular visualization, it reinforces the mind, the brain, the body, everything to begin to walk through the world as though it has already occurred. And people around us, human beings respond very positively to certainty. They respond very positively to confidence. And so I'm 100% in support of everything you said and adding in the additional dimension of it's not just about quote unquote praying. There's a term called fervent prayer And what it refers to is the difference between praying for something and then praying like you mean it, like really praying with your energy and with your emotion and with your passion. And the instruction or the recommendation by a lot of religious figures and also by the Bible and various texts in religion is fervent prayer, not just prayer, but fervent prayer. And I believe that what's being touched on there by that ancient wisdom, whether it's being misused or used appropriately, is that there is a difference between simply just visualizing something and then visualizing something while also enrolling your emotional faculties, and that there seems to be a positive effect on the way people move throughout the world by doing so. So for me, I'm reinforcing what you're saying, but I'm also adding the additional dimension of emotional fitness to it.
Interesting. It was for what
Fervent,
prayer?
fervent prayer.
Fervent prayer. So essentially prayer, but you really mean it.
Yeah, like put it well, and we can pull away from equivocation on this one. Praying with emotional intensity, I would say is what we could say instead of praying like you really mean it.
Okay. If it comes to your personal goals, what one thing that I've heard when I was really in Christian circles that I thought was positive regarding prayer was if you're going to pray, um, you don't take your foot off the gas pedal and just let Jesus and or Yahweh take the wheel. Like you have to do the fucking thing, but it's like they're gonna empower you to do the thing. So if that's what you believe, great. I think that's fine. I think that's where prayer kind of crosses over into the positive conviction that you're going to accomplish something. I think that's fine. That could be the best case scenario version of prayer. I'm cool with that. Uh, I still would not recommend, even with the fervent prayer, to pray for loved ones that are ill because that still does not make them better if they think that they are failing God. Because the person who is sick, a lot of times, if they are really religious, uh, they will think that they did something wrong to make the devil want to put them in this sick state, and and that they want to believe hard enough in God to make them feel better. And if you are praying for them and they are not getting better, they feel like their faith isn't strong enough and they're doing bad, and so it makes the person who's ill feel uh helpless and that they failed you and God and everyone that is wanting them to get better. And it makes them feel more negative about that and it makes them feel worse. So I would still, even with fervent prayer, uh, push back on do not do that for sick loved ones. It will probably make them worse.
Interesting. If they know you're doing it.
Yeah, if they know that you're doing it, if they don't know you're doing it, then I don't think it's going to harm besides the positive expectation that they're going to get better. And if they don't, then you would just feel disappointed. Outside of that,
I think you could
um,
definitely like think of it from this perspective. If we go into the more science-based approach that you and I are talking about, if people can sense and they can feel confidence from somebody, that means they're picking up on certain nonverbal cues from one to another that they're picking up. This means confidence. I recently there was a family friend who he had passed away through cancer, and when I would speak to when I would speak to people around this individual very consistently, when I would hop on the phone and ask them about this person, the tone was always a tone of doom. Like the vocal tone I could hear was, yeah, not gonna make it, was essentially what I kept hearing. And in my heart of hearts, I was like, oh my God, like, is this how people are approaching this person? I'm not this person, but every time I'm talked to about this person, all I'm getting is not gonna make it. And so to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like if that person is getting the consistent feedback by people around them, like, hey, on the way out, buddy, like if that's what you're getting, like that to me would significantly reinforce that thing. And just on an experience level, I'm like, man, I would never want that to be my experience. And so to me, I remember very clearly, I was like, man, I was like, I refuse to buy into the idea that this person is dying or will die until they do. I was like, I'm going to behave and act like this person's going to make it. I'm going to convince myself they're going to make it. I'm going to be like in that until the moment it happens because it's like, I don't, if I were to ever communicate with that person or to communicate with people around them, the energy I'd want to be pouring into the situation, the emotion I'd want people to feel is an emotion of hope and we can do this and let's go. Because I think ultimately that would be end up becoming more supportive
Yeah.
than than the opposite. So to me, it's like I think that and frankly, I did pray for that person. I prayed for them to heal. I prayed for them to be taken care of, for them to live and all that. And it left in me this feeling of conviction for them that they were going to make it. So, and of course, the person unfortunately ended up passing. But to me, I think there's definitely, I think there's definitely a feeling that we can get from others if they're coming to us with a consistent message of, "Hey, we all think you're going to die," versus, "Hey, we're all committed that you're going to live." And like a different, I think there's just a different energy to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that probably, because we talked about what not to do. And I think this is a good message of what to do. Um, is if somebody is it's showing the results that they are getting worse. Um, Come to them with the positive and determination of, hey, I'm here for you no matter what. People have overcome this before,
Yeah.
and thinking that you're not going to make it is not productive. The people who made it are convinced themselves that they were going to make it. This is how powerful placebo is. On this scale, it is literally life and death. So be with them and be like, you can do it. I'm here for you. You have to fight,
Yeah.
and people can make it.
Yeah. 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 Let's go.
That is helpful.
Yeah. It feels like a really good spot to bring it to a close. It's a powerful, powerful message on magical thinking.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for being here, Alan. You're the best bandicoot ever.
Best Bandicoot. Here we go.
All right. All right. I'll see you. Bye bye.